Good afternoon, everyone. It's Steve KI5JUF. I got a video today. We're going to talk about split operations, and what we're going to talk about is using split operations and kind of a quick overview of exactly what split operations are. What does it mean, when you say split operations? So today we'll talk specifically to the FT991A. What is a split operation? How does it work? What exactly is it? And so forth. Just a quick overview, these are some of the buttons that we will be using on the FT991A, and we will actually be using two different VFOs. We'll be using a VFO alpha, Bravo and a VFO Alpha. Now this is the VFO Alpha here. This is the VFO Bravo here. Now there are some other buttons that we're going to be using. One of them is the A=B button, the A/B, the transmit or the transmit reverse, and then split operations. So each one of these kind of gives you a quick overview of what these buttons do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually practice split operations, but we're going to do it on the radio in a separate video. But this video is more or less an overview, just to kind of give you a conceptual idea of what is, when they say split operations, well, what does that mean to me as an operator? Is that, what are you splitting? So it's kind of, it's kind of confusing, but this is, like I said, this is just kind of a quick overview. So let's start with the basics here. You're working the DX contact. We'll call him DX number 1. So you got him, you're working him one-on-one. Your VFO-A is in transmit and receive mode, and mine is also. No big deal here. This is pretty straightforward. Now, all of a sudden we get other stations calling your call sign or my call sign, and you hear them calling in from Ohio, Kentucky, Alabama, and you're hearing your call sign, and you've got multiple people trying to contact you, depending on propagation and so forth. This can happen. So you start getting a couple of stations, and then you work a couple of them, and then all of a sudden you got this scenario going on. You got multiple stations coming in at you, and they're all trying to reach your call sign. So this is where you can actually use split operations. So the first mode for split operations is where me, the radio operator, can instigate or start field split operations, and I control it. That's the first example. So we'll go through and do that real quick. So what's going to happen is, since all of these guys are coming in right there at 28,400, I can't pull them out. I get bits and pieces of call signs and things of that. It's very hard to pull them out and so forth. So we need to fix this. So the most logical way to fix this, since I'm controlling this, I'm going to start the split operations. And what I'm going to do is I am going to actually pick a frequency, or I'm going to configure my radio for split operation. And like I said, I'll show you that in the video, but just for overview, my radio is now I'm going to separate the VFOs. I'm going to separate VFO-A, which is my receive VFO, and I'm going to activate my VFO-B, which is my transmit video, or transmit signal. So with those two individual frequency or uh, with those two individual VFOs, I can now transmit on one VFO and I can receive on a second VFO, very similar to a repeater. So what's going to happen here is, when I set up my radio for dual VFO, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a particular area of the frequency range that I can that's has very little noise or very little traffic or skip. So for example here, I'm going to scan up, and that's called listening up. I'm going to scan 28,405 to 28,415. Now I'm going to listen in here and I'm going to see if there's any traffic going on. If it's quiet, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go back to my VFOB, which my radio has been already configured, and I'm going to transmit on 28400. So remember, this is where all these guys are sitting right now. They're sitting on 28400 and they're trying to get a hold of me. So what I'm going to do, once I've verified this frequency range is clear or has minimal traffic, I'm going to make an announcement right here. And the announcement is going to be, this is KI5JUF calling CQ10 and listening 5 to 15 up. And I'll make that call twice. This is KI5JUF calling CQ10 and listening 5 to 15 up. Now, I'm going to transmit on 28400. Now, guess what? All of these stations here that are listening on 28400, all these stations right here, they're going to hear that. So what I'm expecting them to do is I'm expecting them to also go into split operations. But what they're going to do is they're going to set their VFO-B for this frequency range, because now I've announced that I'm listening on 5 to 15 up. So what they're going to do is they're going to start transmitting in this area. What I am doing is I'm turning my VFO-A and I'm listening for them. So this is what will happen next. They're transmitting and I've asked them to go to 405 to 415. So they're within that spectrum of the frequency and they're calling me. Now I'm listening in that same spectrum of the frequency. Guess what? Once I pick one up, if I pick up a call sign and I can make a contact back to him, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transmit on the original frequency that we were on, and he's going to listen to me. He's going to hear me, but he's going to transmit on a different frequency. For example, here on this example, what's happened is I picked up DX1. I heard him at 412. He was also transmitting at 412. So now this is where we talk about split. He's on 412 transmitting. I'm listening on 412. However, the split takes place here. I am transmitting back to him on the original frequency that we started with of 28.400. So he's hearing me on his split VFO also. So essentially what you have here is I am talking to a specific station, and we're talking on two different frequencies. I'm listening on one frequency and he's transmitting on that same frequency. I'm transmitting on a different frequency and he's listening on a different frequency. So what we end up happening is I can now pull him out and confirm the contact. So now, for example, the other mode was, say for example, I actually come across the split operations and I hear someone saying, this is DX1, I'm listening up 5 to 10. So what I would do then is I would configure my radio for VFOB to be transmitting between this frequency range, and I would be over here in the group of people trying to reach the other station up here. So now what will happen is, guess what? I'm in the contest now. I'm transmitting, and I'm hoping that he will hear me within 5 to 10. So if he hears me, he will transmit back KI5JUF, I have a copy on you, come back. And there I am with my VFO-A in the receive mode. Now this is where we actually make the contact. So here I'm transmitting at 412. He's hearing me at 412. However, he's transmitting back to me at 400. And now I'm listening at 400. So that's where the split is essentially. What you're saying here is you're using, if you start to split, then here's what happens. The rule is if you instigate the split, your VFO-A will be moving. That's the big VFO. you're going to be moving because you're scanning a different range of frequencies. You're listening for those 5 other stations that you've already told to go up 5 to 10. But remember, if you instigated the split operations, you're going to transmit on 28400, and they're going to be listening at 28400. So it's kind of a circle back, if you will. So again, the ideal here of this video is just to kind of give you a quick overview of what we're dealing with here. Basically, what we want to do is we want to take everything that's happening on this frequency here, which is called a pileup. We want to ask all of our stations to go into split operations, but we want to ask them to transmit across this frequency spectrum here, which is what they're doing here. I'm going to be listening on that same frequency spectrum. The only thing that's constant between me and the other stations is my transmit frequency is going to be 28400. That's the original frequency that I called them on, and they're going to be listening on 28400. So that's what we talk about when we talk about split operations. So again, we're going to actually go through and do this on the radio itself. And I'll go through and actually make a video of actually where we do this. So I hope this wasn't too confusing. It's kind of confusing to me, but the general ideal is we want to take everything that's piling up here and we want to spread it across. Instead of having 5 stations transmitting on 400, we're asking those 5 stations to transmit across this frequency spectrum here. Same thing here. However, the difference is they're going to transmit on different frequencies that I'm also listening on. However, the difference is when I reach back to them, I'm going to go back on the original frequency that we started the pileup at. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I'll continue to research this. It's kind of a complex topic, or it seems it's been a little bit hard for me, but anyway, I hope everyone enjoys this. At least it kind of gives you an overview, and there will be following videos showing you how we actually do it on the FT991A. So I hope this was useful, and again, everyone have a great evening, and 73 from KI5JUF. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great evening.